Hello, vinyl community, music community, Beatles community, Elvis community. How are you doing? And happy 2019. This is my second video for the year. I figure I had some time today to get a couple done. So what I'm going to do with this video is this is going to be my review of a brand new book. You might have saw in my video a couple of videos ago when I talked about some of my Christmas presents I received. One of them being, which is back there, the 68 Comeback Special Anniversary Edition box set, which I talked about. Awesome set. You can go back to that video to see my thoughts on that. And in that set came a little advertisement for this book, which I mentioned briefly. And it looked so interesting to me that I said, I have to have it. I mean, the 68 Comeback Special in that period for Elvis is probably, for me, one of my most favorite periods of Elvis's career, albeit among many. I do love Elvis, and I love all facets of his career. There's highlights and there's lowlights, but mainly highlights for me. And 68, that's just my thing. The 68 and that special, I just love it. Probably my favorite moment in Elvis's career is this special. Well, anyway, the writer, producer, and director of dozens of TV specials, Mr. Steve Binder, was selected to be the conceiver. He conceived it, he directed it, and he produced the 68 Comeback Special. And Steve Binder, after many years of not writing too much down, has written an entire book about his experience with producing and directing this special. And I'm so happy he did. It was well overdue, long overdue, and I'm glad he did it. I mean, Steve is a great forward-thinking guy, I have to say. He was, back then he was a young man. He's the guy who produced or got involved in the Tammy Show. You might remember the big rock and roll film from, I think, mid-60s, 65, the Tammy Show. He did that. He was one of the guys who was involved in that, and it's been hailed as one of the best rock and roll films of all time. So he got involved in this, and this is going to be my little review of the book. I've got some notes in front of me here so I don't forget things. I'm going to give you a quick overview. This show has been called one of the greatest musical moments in TV history. Along with the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, this is it. This is up there. I mean, this book just released just covers it all. The story of the Elvis special, Comeback 68 Elvis. Okay. Here's the back. It's a soft cover. That's just the way it is. And Steve did everything in this book. He's included a lot. And when this special first aired, it was huge, folks. I mean, like 40% of the U.S. homes tuned into this special. It was groundbreaking for its time. It was a pivotal moment in Elvis's career. He was rediscovering himself, and he was happy doing it. He was very collaborative. When you read this book, you see how collaborative Elvis was with Steve and the other people working on the special. His confidence, they could see his confidence being restored right before their eyes. He was returning to his roots with the rock and roll stuff, and I've got some of that playing in the background here. It was just unbelievable. Elvis made magic with this special, and he gained a whole new legion of fans when he made this special. And so Steve's finally telling his story, and he's putting it down into this book. So I highly recommend this book, folks. If you're a fan of Elvis or just rock and roll in general, you've got to get this little book. It's about an inch thick or so. Again, soft cover, but I think you'll really like it. Steve was kind of, as you read this book, you kind of determine that he was kind of like a rebel who had these great kind of younger person ideas for Elvis, what Elvis should do in a TV special. And Elvis, from when you read this, appeared to like him right away. He was very honest and upfront with Elvis. Elvis asked him about his career, and Steve jokingly says, Elvis, it's in the toilet. And Elvis, instead of getting mad and like punching him out or something, kind of looked him in the eye and said, hey, thanks. Finally someone's talking honest and right up front to me, not trying to, kiss my butt and schmooze me and all this stuff. So he really respected and liked Steve's viewpoint, and he really was confident working with Steve on this special. You just get that feeling from this book. And again, going back to the bad guy in the whole story, for me, and I just don't like the man and never will. I don't know how many of you feel about him, but I do not like Colonel Tom Parker. And again, the bad guy tried to control what Elvis was doing, and thank goodness Steve and the other people working on this and the sponsors and even to some degree Elvis himself ignored the Colonel and did what they wanted. And so thankfully they did, because the Colonel wanted this to be like some silly hour of Elvis coming on in a Santa suit, basically saying hello, good evening, and then singing like 20 Christmas songs like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Holly Jolly Christmas, and then say good night everybody, Merry Christmas, and leave. I mean, that's, when you read it, that's basically what the Colonel wanted. Well, that's not what the Colonel got, and thank God he didn't, and thank goodness this is what we got, because this special is just so good. The Colonel comes off really bad in this book, and you kind of feel bad for poor Elvis. You know, you can just see the Colonel doesn't have Elvis's best interest at heart. He just doesn't. He doesn't. The Colonel's all about the Colonel. The Colonel's all about just getting what he can get for what it's going to benefit him, and he doesn't care what it does to Elvis or anybody else. Elvis does talk a little bit tough with the Colonel. When he's away from the Colonel, he tries to be a tough guy. Like at one point, Steve Binder says something about the Christmas song, and Elvis, in front of the Colonel, says, yes, sir, we'll do a Christmas song. But behind the scenes, Elvis says to Steve Binder, the heck with him, we're going to do what we want. So when Elvis is away from the Colonel, he talks a little tougher. But when he's with the Colonel, he's a little more of a puppy dog and kind of kowtows to the Colonel to appease him. The Colonel makes some broken promises to Steve Binder. He says there's not going to be a soundtrack album, so Steve doesn't have to sign off on the music they produce. And yet all along, the Colonel had a whole deal in the back room done where there was going to be a soundtrack album, and Steve Binder and the others were cut out of that. So there's a whole, you can read about that. And the Colonel just comes off as a childish bully who takes advantage of people's weaknesses, and certainly we know he took advantage of Elvis. Elvis loved the special. You get that feeling from this. He loved it. It gave him a big boost. The sad part is that Steve Binder never spoke to him again after they said their goodbyes and everything. Steve thinks that he was kind of persona non grata after this special because he stood up to the Colonel a little bit and got what he wanted, that the Colonel put the word out there to Elvis's minions. Steve Binder, he's out. And so a couple of times Steve did try to get in touch with Elvis, and it didn't work, and you can read about that. I won't go into all the detail. But he did hear through the grapevine that Elvis did ask how he was doing and what he was up to and stuff. And it gets kind of sad towards the end of this because Steve did see Elvis later in Vegas, and he tried to get backstage and he couldn't. And some of Elvis's people made it sound like, oh, we didn't know you were there. If we had known you were there, you would have gotten back in a minute. But that's a bunch of, it just... Steve says that. He says, I don't accept what they did to me, and it's pretty sad. And he said he felt sadness for Elvis. He knew it was over when he saw him in the later years in Vegas at one time. He said, the Elvis I knew, he wanted to climb new mountains. Elvis wanted to meet new fans. When he was doing this special, you could feel that from Elvis. He wanted to go all over the world and discover new and exciting things. And basically, he said it just never came to pass. He said Elvis, he doesn't feel Elvis died from, pharmaceutical drug overdose or usage, even though technically that's what he says. Elvis died from boredom. He says that was his big statement. The boredom killed Elvis. And he gives one final statement, which I'm going to read to you right now. He said, to end his life and career as a saloon singer in Las Vegas was not the way he should have gone out. The Colonel had his final victory, an empty and shameful one at that. And that made me kind of sad reading that. That was like the final word from Steve in this book. Because when you read this book, folks, you get so excited for Elvis. You're so pumped up about what he's doing and the new challenges he's facing and how he's taking it head on and doing so well and rocking out again with his old buddies and getting up on that stage in that ring and just knocking them dead. And you just know that if he could have gone forward and had the support he should have gotten from the Colonel to do all the things he should have and could have done, how different his career may have been and how his life may have gone on or ended on a high note, and unfortunately it didn't. So anyway, folks, I don't mean to end on a downer. I just want to tell you that it is a fabulous book because it gives you plenty of details, and again, I won't show every page, but plenty of details about the special. Steve really gives a lot of inside scoop stuff about it. It's fabulous. And there's a lot of notes and special reprints of different documents and forms. It's just a a fabulous book. Priscilla Presley puts a little foreword in here, and I'm just so happy I got it because it really gives you the inside story of the '68 comeback special, albeit kind of sad at the end because it was such a triumph, and yet after this, Elvis had a few more triumphs here and there, but he was held back by the Colonel, and the Colonel did him wrong. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. So I do recommend the book. Check it out. I'm sure it'll be very easy for you to get. See what you think. Elvis is such a wonderful talent. What a great talent he was, and always will be. And he'll always be one of my favorites forever. So thanks for watching. Grab the book if you're a big fan of Elvis. I do recommend it, highly recommend it. And God bless and Happy New Year. Bye-bye.